and I'm going to kind of just start at the top. Is when we do this right here, and you can really see the original surface. Welcome to the channel, everyone. Captain Joe Buskins here with Island Marine Charters Fish Bump TV. I'm a full-time fishing guide down in Gulf Shores, Alabama, and a second-generation professional boat builder. Family's been building boats in this shop right here since 1968. We have a special treat. I built this boat back in '02. This boat's a little over 20 years old, and it's really pretty deep green, but it's hard to tell that it's a pretty green because we've got bad gel coat oxidation. So what we're going to do in this episode is I'm going to show you guys how professional boat builders and repairmen are going to remove that oxidation and make this boat shine like new, help you get your boat or your RV to shine like new as well. Promise this video is not going to be a waste of your time, so you guys hang tight. We're going to move through this and show you how it's done. So you may be asking yourself, why does my boat even have oxidation and what causes it in the first place? Or you may have noticed that darker boats like dark green, dark blue, blacks, they're going to show oxidation more readily. And what do we do to remedy that? Well, first thing that causes it, you got to remember, is just going to be UV exposure is the main factor. So direct sunlight. The more the boat is exposed to direct sunlight and the darker the color, the more you're going to see the oxidation. But it's kind of like if your skin gets sunburned. If you've got burnt skin or a layer of dead skin on the surface, that's kind of how this faded or oxidized gel coat is. It's basically dead gel coat that needs to be removed to expose fresh and shiny gel coat. But like your skin, you want to do it as delicately as possible. You don't want to take any more off than is absolutely necessary. So if you have a newer boat with lighter oxidation, you may want to just go with like a cleaner wax. Whereas this boat, for example, with deeper oxidation, we may be using some 1200 grit sand, wet or dry sandpaper, and actually sanding some of that material off. And I'll touch on that as we move throughout the video because it can be confusing. Is my boat lightly oxidized or is it heavily oxidized? And what would I need to do in that case? Certainly don't want to take off any more than you have to. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is clean the gel coat off first. So that's going to be your first step. A lot of times when you've trailered the boat or you've had it in the water, a lot of times you're going to have real fine dirt and grit and debris on that surface. So honestly, hard to beat good old Dawn for just cleaning the surface. We want to remove any wax that may be on there, any contaminants. Now what we're doing on this repair job for you guys, I'm going to be compounding and restoring the gel coat throughout the whole boat, but I'm going to put some blue tape on here so you guys can see the difference in restored versus unrestored. It'll be a really stark difference and you guys can kind of see, and I can kind of condense the whole process. So what we have here, that's a Zep sprayer. We use these all the time. Anything like it will work. You can buy these at Lowe's or Home Depot. And you'll notice this is discolored. There's already a mild Dawn solution in there. And I'm going to kind of just start at the top, work my way down. I'm going to wet that cloth a little bit. Now, of course, if you were doing this at your home, you could go out in your carport or driveway and use something a little heavier duty and you'd be working. I would recommend doing the whole boat from top to bottom. I'm just going to wipe it down real thoroughly, and then what we have here is some just clean water. That kind of the same deal. I'm going to start always at the top and rinse down. Now what we have here in the shop, and again, this boat is fairly heavily oxidized, so we are going to be using some sandpaper to remove some of this oxidation. Now we're pretty fortunate. We work and we do this kind of stuff all the time, and I have compressed air. That is a Hutchins, which makes a very, very good air tool. If you're looking for quality air tool, this is it. And that is a 1200 grit with like a little sticky back soft pad on it, and it'll follow contours and shapes. But that can be expensive and you may not have one of those. The next best thing, 3M makes a fantastic Velcro backed sanding block. And this is 1200 grit. That's a Sunlight brand, but 3M also makes very, very good sandpaper. And what we're doing is we have just stuck this onto that sanding block. And we're going to use a combination of a little bit of water and a little bit of soap. And what that'll do is that'll help keep the sandpaper from loading up. And what I would recommend doing is just starting in a light circular motion. And you can see we're doing real nice and easy circular overlaps, and you can hear it cutting right there. You're doing overlapping passes. Now, I've had a lot of practice at this, y'all, and this is a good way to get your exercise in. If you're doing a whole boat, you may want to invest in an inexpensive dual action. They call it a DA or even a jitterbug sander. The thing you're going to want, though, I would recommend for wet sanding is something that is pneumatic, which means it's air powered. Reason for that is you're dealing with wet surfaces. You wouldn't really want to use an electric while you're dealing with that. It's a shocking hazard. You want to be safe. But you can actually see there's material. Look at that. We're already removing. You can see the green tint to that. We're removing a little bit of that damaged and or oxidized material. Now, obviously, it's going to take you a minute to do this if you do it by hand, but it is certainly a way to get it done if you don't want to spend the money that it would cost on getting a legit power tool. So that is one method for you DIYers. But what I'm going to do, since I'm doing this, trying to make a living at this and time is money, I'm going to go ahead and turn on the compressor. We're going to get some air power to our dual action sander, and I'm going to show y'all what that's going to look like. There's a good old Hutchins. There's the softback. That is 1000 grit too. Now, one thing you may want to make note of is that if you're using a machine, you can usually get away with slightly more aggressive sandpaper. If I were doing it by hand, I would be using 1200. Machine, you can get away with 1000, no problem. A little more of the soapy solution, a little bit on the disc, and what you want is nice, flat contact. I'm going to do this real methodically. You guys get the gist of that. Now, this is going to take a few minutes. I generally like to sand on it for a few minutes, kind of just see how it's looking. If it looks like we've removed most of the oxidation, we're going to stop. Again, remember, we don't want to be any more aggressive than we have to be. So y'all give us a few minutes. We're going to finish up this step. I'm going to show you what it looks like, and we'll proceed to the next. We have finished wet sanding this area, and I'm just going to hit this with some clean, fresh water. Obviously, if you're out in your driveway or somewhere where you can use the garden hose, that would make sense. So we're done with the DA at this point. Again, a dual action sander, you can buy these at like Harbor Freight for way less than $100, or like a professional grade one can cost several hundred. If you're going to be doing a bunch of that, I would recommend the Hutchins. They have been fantastic for me. I've owned several of their air tools. And what we're going to be doing is switching to this beast right there. That is a big DeWalt. And what you're going to want for one of these is a variable speed where we can actually adjust the RPMs up to several thousand and down to as low as 1,000 or so. And it's got a real progressive, they call that a soft touch. So as I'm adding the trigger, they'll come up to speed gradually. Now, this is a powerful machine, and this is electric. So once again, we want to be away from the water. And it's got a really nice Velcro backer pad there. That's a Presta brand, but 3M makes some really good ones as well. I'll try to have a link in the description below for all the products. Now, if you follow me over here, this is where it can kind of get confusing sometimes. You go to the marine hardware store and you're like, which one do I get? There's all these different pads that can go on these machines, and they all generally say buffing pads. As a general rule of thumb, the white ones, or just the slightly off white ones, are going to be your heavy cutting pad. And this is the Presta, the 890141, and that would be used with your heaviest phase of cutting. So we're going to use a compound that's got aggressive grit. And what, as you move to the yellow one, that's going to be for like your swirl and polish or machining. And then these would be for your like machine and polish, and then even for waxing. But just remember, if you have heavy oxidation, that is a good one. Presta makes a good product. Again, 3M makes a good product. And what we're going to be using, and I want to show y'all that there is not just one brand or one company. I'm not sponsored by any of these folks. Presta makes some really good products. That's their Super Cut, and that's what we're going to start with. But Meguiar's has been around a long time. That is just a cleaner wax. If you just have light oxidation on your boat, just minimal oxidation, that's a great product. And of course, you're going to hear me talk a lot about 3M. This 3M marine compound and finishing material, and that's in a gallon, the 06045. It's not cheap, but it's really, really good, and it's one of my favorites. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get one of these, this pad rolling here. Now this is just a one-sided. You'll notice there's a Velcro backer on one side. You got your wool pad on the other. You can buy ones that are two-sided. They're going to cost a little bit more, and I kind of like the one-sided ones because it's real easy to pull them off. And just like that, it's stuck. It's going to peel off of there when you want to change it to the other, and it's real easy. When you're doing this, we can do a cut, and then we can do a machine, and we can do a polish and wax, and it works really good. Now, one thing I've noticed is a lot of times these new pads, y'all hang tight, bear with me. These new pads can be full of all kind of lint and little particles, and I personally like to use an air compressor, bring this thing up to speed a little bit. Imagine you guys could have seen or saw some of that lint and dust coming out of there. Forgive the compressor, sorry about that. Part of working in a shop, y'all. Now this is also a good time to mention that some PPE is probably a good idea, and I mean a mask of some kind. Generally when we're doing these videos, I may not wear one because it just muffles my voice and harder to hear, but if you're doing this, any kind of buffing and compounding, there are some materials within this stuff that are not great for you to breathe. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lightly moisten that, and what we're doing for this boat is we are going straight to the Presta. That's the Super Cut. I don't know if you can zoom in on that part number down there, Logan. That's the heavy duty, the Super Cut. Anytime this stuff has been sitting around for a minute, you're going to want to agitate it a little bit. I like to put a little bit of water on the pad, especially when you have a new one. And generally speaking, I'm going to go and do one squeeze. There we go. All right, we're not going terribly crazy. Now again, y'all, I'm just showing you guys how we do it and how we've had success in the past. I'm not saying this is the only way or the very best way possible, but this is what works for us, and I guarantee if you follow these steps, it'll work for you. Now we've applied some of this material onto the pad. You gotta be super careful about not turning the machine on. It'll sling this stuff everywhere. What I typically like to do is lightly apply it over the surface before I trigger the machine. You can see that's worked it in just a little bit. I'm going to run this thing on the lowest speed possible for this machine. That's about 1,000 RPMs. And I'm just going to real easy, I'm just going to ease into it. We're just going to go nice and easy at first. gonna start speeding up a little bit, y'all, and it may sling some of this material around. Again, some eye protection or a mask is not a bad idea. We're gonna speed it up a little bit. And I wanna keep the pad nice and flat. Across, and we are going up and down. We go across and we go up and down. Pressure, but light pressure. Woo! And look at there, you can see on the pad, we've got some green coloration. The lint is flying, y'all. Again, glasses and a mask, a good idea, maybe even a fan. But what an improvement we've already got just from the wet sand and that first cut. We're already starting to see some of the reflection come back. You can see my reflection. They call that distinction of image. And when you've got something that's really glossy, you can get nearly 100% accuracy in the reflection. But that's looking a world better versus what we had just a few moments ago. Now at this point, you can kind of determine, do you want to do another pass with the heavier cutting material, or would it be time to kind of move on to the next step? To me, that's looking pretty darn good. I am inclined to move on to the compound and finishing material. Now this is just me personally, but I usually like to go over each phase with just a little wipe down with some fresh water and a terry cloth towel before we go to our next step. And that's going to kind of remove any residual compound, any of the heavy cutting compound, because we're going now to the machine polish. All right, looks good. You can see a little bit of that green residue coming off of there. So this is the beauty of the one-sided Velcro pads. Now remember, the second phase is going to be in the yellow. That's going to be the medium cutting pad. And what's so nice about these is you can just peel that one off. We'll set it up there when we're ready for our next phase. And we're going to the yellow. Mellow yellow. There we go. Sometimes it'll be a little grabby on the way in. Now 3M, I believe they may have actually changed the part number for this. The marine compound and finishing material may be something slightly different. And what we will do is I will describe that. If they've changed it, I'll make sure to make a note of it after the video so you can kind of get the same material. Now same deal, start this thing up. Get rid of some of that lint and dust. And you guys will probably, I would imagine you would get like a quart at a time. It's cheaper by the gallon, but the average person's probably not going to need that much for your smaller gel coat restoration deals. Now we got a little bit of water residue on there. I'm going to do the same deal as we did with the heavy cutting. I'm going to kind of just work this in a little bit first. So remember, if you spin this thing up at full speed, it is going to sling compound everywhere. And remember, wearing a mask is not a bad idea. We're going to soft touch this thing, just really ease in. Nice and slow at first. And guys, you do not need a big heavy DeWalt like this for just personal use. Now, if you want to spend a few bucks and do it, it'll last you forever. I've had this machine probably 10 or 12 years. One thing you can do sometimes is go to places that sell like wholesale tools. We've got one place here locally where they do tools that have been sent back in and minor repairs made to them, and they'll sell them at a heavy discount. Bosch makes one of these, DeWalt makes one of these, Makita makes. Just remember the variable speed. So what we're going to do is we are going to just continue to work that in. What most people do is they go too fast and they don't do it methodically. You'll notice I'm going side to side. And then we are going to go up and down. Remember, you're going to buff and compound as if you're in a search pattern. You've got to cover every bit of it methodically. A lot of folks kind of want to do kind of just this, and that is just not going to get you the results you want, y'all. The professionals are going to do it up, down, side to side, up, down, side to side. I'm going to continue to buff this along. We'll show you as we go. We'll get ready for the next phase. There again, look, that pad is taking some green. That means we're taking a little bit of material off with that pass as well. Definitely looking shinier. I don't know if you guys can see that for sure, getting some gloss and shine. We're gonna kind of do the same as we've been doing. I'm gonna do a light rinse. Get the residue off of there. Definitely looking better. I want to do a little bit of soapy water because the next phase is actually going to be the wax. And the wax is what's going to seal it. So it's very important to remember that you do not want to do your compounding and then skip the waxing. The waxing is going to fill the pores that are open. Gel coat is very porous. Got some lint on the camera. There you go. Gel coat's very porous, and when we're sanding it, it's microscopic pores, but if you don't fill those pores with a quality wax, you're gonna have dirt fill in those places. So it is very, very important to use a good quality wax. Now, what I have found that I really, really like is, I believe that's Colinite. It's a heavy duty paste wax. That is a marine and aeronautical. It is high caliber, high quality stuff. We're gonna get this wiped down. I'm gonna go over it with some fresh water. We're gonna dry it off. We're gonna get ready for our wax application. We've moved on to the last step. So it's wet sand, coarse cut, machine polish, and now we've got the wax to seal the porosity. And again, this is just a brand I like. As a general rule of thumb though, anything that Meguiar's or 3M makes is really, really good. This is a brand I found at our local boat owner's warehouse, or we call it locally Blue Water Ship Store. So if you guys at the store there in Foley, Alabama on Highway 59, if y'all are watching, excellent product there. So we have rinsed that and we've dried it. And what we're gonna do now with our wax application is, you noticed I really loaded that cloth up real good. Don't go sparing on the wax. Like, go heavy, man. Go ahead and put it in there. And what I'm gonna do is I'm doing circular motions to really work it in, and we're doing overlapping passes. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of going over half. As I do my circular, I'm going over the first pass halfway, and that's essentially giving you 2 passes. As you go from top to bottom, you're overlapping. You're gonna be really sure to get good coverage. I'm gonna go back and get a little more, since we have really stripped this off. And wax is your friend It's gel coat's friend for sure. It's kind of like, remember our illustration of getting sunburned and your skin peeling? Wax is kind of like the sunblock for us folks. The older I get, the more I got to be careful about wearing a hat, long sleeve shirt, sunblock. Now, what I like to do is, just to me personally, is I've gone back and forth across. I am now going to start at the bottom and methodically go up all the way to the top, down to the bottom, up to the top, down to the bottom. There you go. Any of y'all remember the Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi, wax on, wax off? This is some good exercise. Now if you want to go one more step, sometimes I will then finish up with just a side to side motion. Guaranteed we've got full coverage on that. You want to be absolutely sure you haven't missed any spots. Now generally it takes a few minutes for this to kind of haze over, and so we're going to give this 5-10 minutes or so, and it'll go from being kind of wet to the touch. As I touch that right now, you can feel that that wax is wet. And don't wax out in the open sun. Now that is something I probably should have mentioned earlier, even compounding. You're going to want some shade, roof overhead. Sunlight shining on the stuff is going to make it dry crazy fast. It's going to be pretty hard to control it. So if you can find some shade to work it in, we're going to give this, say, 10-15 minutes to set. We're going to show you how we hit this last phase. This wax has had 10-15 minutes to kind of tack off a little bit. When we first put it on there, it is very wet to the touch and will come right off on your fingertips. You can tell now it has definitely dried. It's changed colors and kind of sheens. Now there's different ways you can deal with taking the wax off. Now one of the ways is just a good old, what we call a shop towel, or like a terry cloth towel. You could use a chamois. You can also use a buffing pad if you want. Now generally I lean toward just old-fashioned, just circular motions, just like you put it on. That's how we're going to take it off. And what I will typically do is make a pass or two with one face of this. We'll get the bulk off. Again, we're kind of starting from top to bottom. And I generally don't try to get everything on the first pass. You know, we kind of start at the top. We're going to get the bulk of the wax off of there. It is a circular. Now we're doing a back and forth motion, and I'm going to turn the pad. So that's loaded up with wax. This side hasn't seen any wax yet. Again, the same deal. I'm going to go in a circular motion, and I'm really starting to feel this get slick, get smooth. You can really tell that the wax is filling those pores. It's looking better. So heavy wax on that side. The next cut on that one, I'm going to take the cloth and we're going to turn it so we got a fresh surface on either side. Same deal. I'm going to start at the top. Circular motion. Now I've heard people in the know say that if you apply a coat of wax perfectly, you can't apply any more than one perfect coat. Meaning the surface, once you've filled the pores and coated the surface, one perfectly applied coat is all it'll hold. But the tricky part of that is, it's hard to apply a perfect coat. If you really want to go the extra mile with your compound and wet sanding gel coat restoration, you could add a second coat of wax after you've done the first. And that pretty much ensures that you have sealed the surface thoroughly. Now, y'all tell me what you think. I think that looks pretty amazing. Where the difference really comes is when we do this right here, and you can really see the original surface and the difference in what we did. If you kind of go from one side to the other and change angles, of course there's still a little bit of moisture there under the tape. When that moisture dries, you'll see a difference, but I don't know. I think that is pretty amazing. It's amazing what that'll do. Now, it's not easy. It's not going to be like a quick magic, snap your fingers in one step. And I know a lot of people really, really want, you know, that kind of deal. The closest thing to a one-step process would be like a cleaner wax. Sometimes they call that a one-step or just a cleaner wax. And you'll find a lot of times with boats that are badly oxidized, like this boat has a rolled gunnel, and this is going to be more sheltered from UV light, and the oxidation won't be as intense there. Now I'm going to kind of demonstrate. This is kind of a one-step. Okay, so got a good bit on there, and I'm just going to do this by hand. Now you can do this with a machine as well, but generally intense, just circular motions, really working this in, and it's going to take a minute, and I'll show you. You'll see some oxidation come off on the terry cloth towel after a minute or so of rubbing there. You can see here on the pad, see that's taken off some material, very light material removal, which in a lot of cases is all you want. You really don't want to do the full-on color sand, the deep one, any more than you have to. The one step can gain a pretty good bit of shine for the average person. I don't know if you can ease in there, Logan, but you can definitely see where that was. It definitely looks better than the rest. But man, what a difference. What a difference that is. Now, expect to spend a day or sometimes even two or a long weekend if you've got a boat this size or somewhere thereabouts. Now again, I'm not saying this is the only way or the perfect way or my way is absolutely the best way. I just know I've done a lot of boats this way and my customers have been happy, and it seems to move us along because we do this professionally. You don't really want to spend any more time than you have to get a quality job. So, but I'm also open to comments. If you guys, any professionals that out there that do this, maybe there's some materials you like that have improved over the years, I'm open to suggestion or input. If you have any questions, feel free to comment down below. And you guys, y'all may see the big gray Buskins 29. Matter of fact, we'll sneak over here. Some of you guys may have been following the build of this boat, but if you have not and you're new to the channel, we've actually documented the build of this 29-foot hybrid bay from start to finish. This is a brand new boat that we use in our charter operation, but if you check out our channel here at Fish Bump TV on YouTube, we've got it fully documented and happy to answer questions about that as well. And if you guys have some suggestions as far as videos you'd like to see us produce, I'm open to it. I want y'all to know I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to watch this channel. I hope it was useful and helpful for you guys. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending the time to watch the channel. If you liked it, thumbs up. Captain Joe here with Island Marine Charters down in Gulf Shores, Alabama. Fish Bump TV here on YouTube. And as always, we will catch you guys next time out.